is the difference between people who succeed in a toxic or difficult environment and what people aren't so successful at it. And it really boils down to mindset. So to sort of share that with you, I'm going to give you a story or a scenario. And we're going to start with Sandy. And Sandy walks into her work environment on a Monday with a stack of papers of things, projects she didn't finish from the week before because her boss just piled it on, right? And just as she's sitting down to her desk, her boss walks out and brings a stack a foot tall of papers and reports and says, I need this on my desk by noon, and turns on his heel and walks away. Slams the door to his office, and Sandy's sitting there feeling, heartbroken. Understandably, she's got all this work from the week before. She's got all this new work that her boss just gave her. He hasn't given her any explanation. He's just turned on a dime and walked away. He didn't even acknowledge her or say her name. He didn't ask how her weekend was or anything. And tears start to well up in her eyes because she just feels so underappreciated, like she's just a workhorse and not even seen as a human being in the workplace. And she feels victimized, and we can all understand that, right? So let's take another story. Let's take the story of Emily. Emily walks in the door of her workplace and sits down at her desk, and she's got a stack of papers and projects from last week that her boss gave her that she couldn't work through. She even worked a couple hours of overtime to try to get it all done. Okay. Still didn't get it done. Just as she's sitting down to start on her projects, her boss walks out of his office door and brings a stack a foot tall of papers and slams them on her desk and says, I need these done and completed on my desk by noon, turns on his heel, walks away, and slams the door of his office. So Emily, is having a reaction that's similar, but she sits there and tones it down a minute. And at that moment, after she's had a minute to rest and process what just happened, she gets up and goes to her boss's office and knocks on the door and asks if she can come in. The boss tells her to come on in. She says, hey, I want to do a great job for you, and I want to get this done by noon. What are the top 2 or 3 things you really think I need to be paying attention to or cognizant of to really get this done the way you need it? Because I want to make sure I get it to you on time. I don't want you to worry, and I want to make you look good. So is there anything I need to know? Oh, and by the way, also I had these other 3 projects from last week that you said were priority. I did stay a couple hours, several hours overtime to try to get those done. They're still there. I'm assuming now, since this is most important, that getting those to you at 1, 2, 3 o'clock this afternoon after lunch would be acceptable to you, and that's what I'm planning, unless you tell me differently. Does all that sound good? Oh, and by the way, how was your weekend? Can I get you a cup of coffee? And after the discussion's over, which is very short, she walks out, shuts the door, sits down, and starts working on her projects with a happy heart. So my question to you is, what is the difference between Sandy and Emily? And the difference is mindset. So Sandy goes to work, and her mindset is, I do tasks, and I even apply my talent. Maybe she thinks she's artistic. I apply my artistic, high level of talent to these tasks for a paycheck. And that's how she views work. It's task, project for a paycheck, right? And in that process, she expects to be treated well, and understandably, we all expect or at least want to be treated well. But Emily has a little bit different mindset. Emily goes to work saying to herself, what value can I offer to everyone around me today? What is the value that I can offer to the world through my job? For Emily, her job is just a vehicle to sustain herself, but to add value. And she doesn't limit that adding value to just her boss or to just her peers or to just the people that might report to her or even to people, her boss's boss. She tries to add value at every level. And because this is her mindset, because she's in this giving higher level mindset when she goes to work, she actually contributes more, because what it helps her realize is that other people's baggage is not hers to own. However, it is hers to deal with if she finds herself in the environment of it and it involves her, right? That mindset allows her to think of the higher ground responses, the higher ground reactions that she could take, actions that she could take that would be more productive than reacting or just sinking into a hole in sadness or despair or victimization. And she builds skills in that way. So I've had people tell me before, hey, well, you know what? Emily's a doormat. You know, I don't think so. Emily's completely in charge. First of all, Emily's not a doormat because Emily takes care of herself. Emily makes sure that every day she exercises and she does her meditation. She makes sure as much as she can, she has her 2 hours a week with her kids because it's what brings her heart joy. It's what makes her whole. Emily makes sure she is whole before she does anything for anybody else. It gives her the strength to add value. It's sort of like when we get on a plane and they say, if the oxygen mask dropped down, put on your own first before you help others. The reason for that is that if you don't have oxygen, you can't help other people. You'll die. You can't help people if you're dead. And you also can't help people if you're depleted of motivation and energy and happiness. You just can't do it. So you got to feed yourself first. So that's one thing that Emily does. Okay. But another thing that Emily does is she doesn't take on other people's toxicity or difficulties as her own. She doesn't do that. What Emily does is she sees it with hers as hers to deal with, but not because of her. And that allows her to stand back without emotion after she's processed or vented. And we all should have a trusted colleague or relative or friend that we can vent to, because sometimes getting rid of that and purging it is really necessary to taking the next higher ground step, right? But once she's able to do that, whether it's taking a trip to the bathroom or just taking a deep breath, she's able to say, what compassion can I have for this person? They obviously are stressed. They obviously, anytime someone's angry or harsh, it's out of fear or worry. She realizes that. How can I alleviate worry? How can I ensure that this person will be able to meet their goals? Because after all, I do work for them. She has that compassion, and that allows her to act and add value to someone that may not be as compassionate. And she can do that with everyone around her. In fact, Emily can even advise another trusted colleague that's having problems with their boss. Now, some of you might say that's really great, and maybe Emily's going to really do a great job in that particular role, and everybody will like her, or maybe, you know, her boss will like her. But what does that really do for Emily in the long run? Well, it does a lot for her. So let's look at the promotional capabilities of Sandy versus Emily. So they're both looking for a promotion in management. One of the questions they're both likely to get in the interview is, have you ever worked for a toxic boss, and how did you handle it? And the way Sandy's going to answer that question is she's going to say, yeah, I had a toxic boss. He was horrible. He piled me with work. He never gave me priorities, you know, and he never acknowledged me. He never said my name once on a Monday when I came in from a weekend. And he never considered, you know, all the different things that were went on in a task. And I felt really underappreciated. I applied my full talent. I put in overtime. It was never recognized. And I felt victimized by him. And he was awful. And I just can't wait to get out of there and get into a better situation. And when an interviewer hears that, they have the reality check that this is a person that's not going to have an easy time working in any environment, because almost every environment has either toxic or dysfunctional people, whether they're your boss or not. And if you're not demonstrating the ability not to internalize that, but to think about how to respond, it's going to hinder your ability to promote to higher levels. And that's why Sandy's actually harmed by her sort of victim mentality. When you operate from a higher source, it lets you dump all the baggage of everybody else because it's not yours, but it lets you still add value to them with a happy heart once you've vented, right? So let's go into the interview with Emily. And she gets the same question asked. Emily, have you ever had a toxic boss, and how did you deal with it? And she says, she lightens it, right? She softens that tone. She says, hey, you know, I don't know if it was toxic, but I definitely have had difficult bosses. My last boss that I had was difficult at times. And here's an incident that happened. I was piled on with too much work that I could get done in the time frame that he wanted. So I went in and I asked, hey, what are the top 2 or 3 things you want me to keep in mind for this current project? And it is okay if I plug in the deadlines for these other projects here, since this one's now important. Oh, and by the way, how was your weekend? And can I get you a cup of coffee? And as she's walking out the door, and as I was walking out the door, I said, hey, I just want you to know, I don't want you to worry about this. I got your back. I don't want you to have to worry at all. And I want to make you look good. So I'm off to do that now. Bye, boss. So now the interview is looking at Emily like, wow, she can deal with difficulty. She can deal with a difficult boss. She could probably deal with difficult people around her. Not only that, maybe Emily mentioned, you know, I shared with a colleague that they might approach it that way. So now she's having a positive impact on other people. And that's one thing they're going to know about her is Emily has the ability to operate with difficult or toxic people. But here's the other thing they're going to know about her. Emily's strong because she operates from a higher place of adding value. And they may even ask a follow-on question. Hey, what motivated you to go ahead and give like that and have that compassion? And Emily's going to say, you know what? The reason I do it is because I'm not here really for any one individual. I'm here to add value to everybody and to the company in the best, highest way possible that I can. And I'm telling you, there isn't an employer in the world that doesn't want an employee that has that mindset. So the punchline to this whole video, if you want to have a positive impact on a toxic situation or a toxic boss, you must change your mindset from a victim mindset to a service mindset or an adding value mindset. It will serve you tremendously well. It identifies you as someone that can manage up and lead up. It identifies you as someone who can deal with difficult situations, and it helps make you promotable. And I will tell you, when you get into that mindset, then everybody's problems aren't yours. You don't take them so personally, so you'll be happier. Okay? Okay, so and anybody else who will watch this later, I want to thank you for watching. I want you to go out there and empower yourself this week, and always remember that I'm your biggest fan.